Great. Hello, everyone. This is Jeff Rutledge. I'm with Med Results Network. I'm going to hand this over to Melanie, who's with Tiger Aesthetics. I just want to thank you guys for everybody for coming on board tonight. I want to let you know that we've had quite a big semaglutide and tirzepatide program. Ours comes from a manufacturer. And we have started to really hear over the last year about the hollowed look and what is the best product out there. We're going to talk about that best product tonight. Also want to let everybody know that we are going to be back in business with our tirzepatide program. It looks like the week of August 18th. And if you have any questions on how to sign up, we've got a new order entry platform. Just email us at info@MedResultsNetwork. That's info@MedResultsNetwork. So, Melanie, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Okay.
Let you take it over.
Let me share my screen. You guys let me know that you can see this full screen. Jeff, give me a heads up.
I sure can.
Okay. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. My name is Melanie Farrar. I am with Tiger Aesthetics Medical. I am the AVP of Sales for the West. And I am going to introduce to you what TAM, or otherwise known as Tiger Aesthetics Medical, is. So you may be wondering what TAM is. Tiger Aesthetics Medical is a company that belongs under the parent company or umbrella of Tiger Biosciences. And if you're asking or thinking, who is Tiger Biosciences? They're the leading authority in placental allograft tissue for treating non-healing wounds. So the two private owners of this company, being experts in the human cell and tissue products, have also acknowledged quickly that there's a massive benefit to adipose tissue, which is known for volumization and regenerative properties, especially in the aesthetic space. So as you can see by this timeline illustrated here, our owners decided to create an aesthetic division in 2024 through a series of acquisitions, leading them to the creation of TAM, or Tiger Aesthetics Medical, with an allogeneic structural adipose tissue, now known as AlloClay, being the driver and the nucleus behind the aesthetic division, along with other products, and one which is near and dear to my heart tonight that we're going to speak to later, which is called Bellafill. So what makes Tiger unique? Well, we have an array of products that create solutions for patients and practices by offering products from head to toe, not only from the in-surgical procedures to the outpatient procedures, so in and out of the operating room, which is very important to our practices today. And then very unique buckets, which is called face, body, and breast within our portfolio. And you can see the different products that are outlined here. So many solutions for each area of opportunity: breast, face, and body. So breast being AlloClay, Sientra, Viality, which is a fat transfer product. Body, which is AlloClay, Viality, and Ovally, which is a cellulite device. And then our face products, Bellafill, Silhouette, and PRP. So again, offering a head-to-toe solution for all of your patients from pretty much any decade of life. So beyond this, beyond the product support of this amazing portfolio that we have, we also look beyond just our product offerings. We offer full support to our group that stand specifically around clinical education, and that's why we have Wendi here to talk to you a little bit about her experience, but specifically the Tiger partnership that will ensure that all of our practices, all of you that are on the call this evening, can capitalize on the economic value of the entire portfolio that we offer at Tiger Aesthetics. So with that being said, I am happy to introduce an amazing Tiger partner, trainer of ours, and thought leader who specializes in facial rejuvenation in this crazy epidemic that we're dealing with weight loss, but she's using the amazing product called Bellafill as a biostimulatory filler to find that solution for these patients that are going through this weight loss journey. So Wendi, I'm gonna toss this over to you.
All right, we'll see if I can save my screen here or share it. Let's see. There you go. Give me a thumbs up. Can you see it?
Yep.
So my name is Dr. Wendi Harper. I've been in healthcare since 1995, but I've worked in aesthetics specifically since 2012. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I'm a Medi-Spa owner, a co-owner right now. I've had 2 spas in the past, and I've worked for derm and plastics. So I've been around the block a few times. This is kind of near and dear to my heart because we see a lot of weight loss patients and we see a lot of aesthetic patients. About 2 years ago, my collaborator came to me and he said, I really think you need to start carrying this. And my initial response was, oh no, I don't like weight loss patients. I don't want to do this. And he said, I really think you should look into it and tell me what you think. My past history has been writing for, I've been in clinics where we're writing for, phentermine or stimulants. And it's just like this cycle where patients, you're kind of setting them up for failure. They don't typically do really well in that. So I was really reluctant to bring this into the practice, but I will say I've done a 180-degree turn in terms of what I think about it now, because the changes that I've seen in patients, not just their overall weight, but their labs, they're getting off medicines they've been on for years. And it's really just a great thing for your health. So, 90% of filler patients report after they've done it for a little bit, they kind of get sick of having to be in your chair every 6 to 9 months. And a lot of people would like a longer lasting filler. And this really is a good partnership between weight loss patients and people that would like filler to last longer, because these are kind of the same patient, believe it or not. I started thinking about the issues that I need to address with weight loss patients, and they're often the same exact things I'm addressing for patients that are aging, perimenopausal women, postmenopausal women. It's, skin laxity and skin drop. I just threw some data on here because, why not? It's interesting though. I mean, it's approximately 2.5 billion adults are overweight and 890 million of these are classified as obese. And it's, obesity's doubled since 1990, but I think the really sad statistic up here is, 390 million children and adolescents are overweight and 160 million are obese. And that's just really sad. They're missing their childhood. So it is an epidemic and, it needs to be addressed. And Medi-Spas are picking up the slack for, in primary care, of course, they're addressing it, but a lot of patients are hitting a wall and not able to get it, through their insurers. I know in North Carolina, Blue Cross Blue Shield at one point had completely stopped covering it for anybody, regardless. I had a gentleman that actually was a type 2 diabetic, had 3 comorbidities, and he couldn't get it paid for. And I just couldn't for the life of me figure out why. But anyway, so we got him on the program. He's doing great. The demand has, skyrocketed. Between 2018 and 23, there was a 500% increase in spending. But the statistic here that really shocked me when I read it was, and these are the name brands, Ozempic specifically saw a staggering 6,500% increase in spending. And this is again from 18 to 23, so it's higher now. So weight loss is really great for a patient's health and psyche, but not so great for the skin. And so when I started really thinking about it, the effects that you see from weight loss are that, like I said earlier, are the same effects that you see with the aging face. You get hollowed out cheeks, you get that gaunt appearance, they start to have deepened folds, and their face is catching more shadow. They lose the facial fat in their upper and in their lower face. And then, of course, the effects that you see with the neck, they just have loose and hangy and saggy skin. So skin laxity can be addressed with Bellafill. Bellafill really makes the skin stronger because it increases the amount of collagen and elastin in the dermis. Skin drop, on the other hand, can be addressed with Silhouette Instalift. If the patient has really loose hanging skin and they're, maybe they're postmenopausal or perimenopausal, it's really important to lay out for them that they might want to get a consult for plastic surgery. I think it's unfair not to, or to like make patients believe that you can fix it in a non-invasive environment. I mean, sometimes they literally just need surgery. And like I said, if I go through my spiel and the patient's still like, no, I don't want to do surgery, well, that's one thing, and at least I've put it out there. But you don't want to be, one of the things I always say to patients is you can actually spend more money in the non-invasive lane than you would getting surgery and still not have the outcomes you would have with surgery. And the fact of the matter is, even if a patient goes and gets a face and neck lift, they still need everything that you're offering at your Medi-Spa, fillers, neurotoxins, etc. Bellafill is the longest lasting biostimulator. It has hands down been my favorite filler for years. And I mean, I love it. It's 80% bovine collagen. 20% of it is polymethyl methacrylate. I don't need to say that 10 times. I can't do it. So we'll refer to it as PMMA. And then it has a small percent of lidocaine, just like every other filler on the market. So the way that it works, basically, it really is just science. You're tapping into the healing process. So you insert this, and it is a foreign body. We can talk about who might not be a good choice for this, but basically, when you inject it and it's injected into the dermis, the first thing that happens is your body starts to make type 3 collagen, which we see initially with wound healing. And as time goes on, it starts at about a month, and by 6 months, it's the majority of the collagen is type 1, which is the heavy hitter, which is the collagen that we all want. And that's responsible for strong skin, hair, nails. So what's really exciting is for Suniva, now Tiger has the 17-year post-market surveillance data. When they first hit the US, we really couldn't come back and fight anybody that was saying anything negative with the numbers because we just didn't have them. Well, now we do. And so over the past 17 years, more than 1.2 million syringes have been distributed. And of that, across that timeline, we've only seen 0.12% AEs, which is comparable to other biostims out there. And in fact, maybe actually a little lower. I wanted to just briefly talk about Instalift because I love this product too, but also for the weight loss patients, you really need to do something besides just filler, because a lot of them have got that skin laxity, especially if they've lost weight rapidly. And it isn't just about GLP-1s. It includes any kind of rapid weight loss. And sometimes it's not even rapid weight loss, but it's just the age that they're at when they lose the weight. And so when we talk about minimally invasive aesthetic medicine, we talk about the 4 R's. So resurface, that's for the skin. We're going to use things like lasers and peels. Relax, that's going to be your neuromodulators. Refill, that's going to be your dermal fillers. And then reposition is going to be your threading. And you could actually say there's a 5th one, and that would be redraping, which in that sense would be a facelift surgery. So Silhouette Instalift is interesting because it works in 2 ways. It initially lifts the tissue and the patient looks better off the table, but it also stimulates collagen production, which is really interesting because when you're looking at before and after pictures, especially in the studies, there isn't anything else in play. Now, at my own practice, I almost never get a patient that lands in my chair that I'm going to put Instalift in that hasn't also already had Bellafill. But I thought it was interesting because you do see a considerable improvement in the skin quality. So not only do you get the lift, but you also get collagenesis that happens because the threads are made of PLLA or polyl lactic acid. which is the active ingredient in Sculptra. And then the cones are made of PLGA, which is polyl glycolic acid. And these work beautifully together to make your body make collagen. Real quick, the ideal patient is going to have good underlying bony projections. They're going to have good skin quality. You want to be able to physically move the tissue, mobilize it. If you can't do that, it's probably not going to move when you put a thread in, right? It's not going to be great. Patients that are not great for Instalift are going to be, if they're really, really elderly, if they have excessive skin, or if they have really, really thin skin. So really heavy tissue can be challenging to lift, but then a really, really thin dermis, like we get as we age and no longer have estrogen, that, I'm not going to say I've never done anybody in their 80s, because I have, but that's definitely a big mountain to climb. Just say that. This picture I love. It's not my patient. It's, oh gosh, I don't have my notes. I think Dr. Lorenc, Lorenc. I apologize if I've gotten your name wrong, but anyway, this was his patient, and the after picture's 10 months out, and I just thought, wow, her skin looks great, and there isn't anything else in play, which is really important when you're looking at how well a product performs, on its own. These are some actual patients. And this, again, like I said, none of my patients have just Instalift. Bellafill's in there, hyaluronic acid fillers are certainly in there in different parts of the face where it's appropriate. So I want to go over my consultation process, because I don't care how good you are at your craft. If you cannot sell, it really doesn't matter, right? And so one of the things that I have had a lot of success with personally is patient retention. And I actually have the very first person that I ever put Bellafill in 2012. She's still my patient, and I've been at, a number of practices over the years. And the reason that I think I retain them is because I take the time to go over what's happening to their face, right? And so I'm just going to kind of give you the down and dirty of what I do with my patients, and you'll have to excuse some of these slides are like archaic, I'll just be honest. But, if it's not broken, why fix it? I mean, they're really good, and it's simple, and it gets the idea, the concepts across, and patients really appreciate being included in their care plan. So basically, and I'll just go through how I do it with a patient. I say, in your 20s, the widest part of your face is at your eyes. The narrowest part is at your chin. We call this the triangle of youth. As you get older, your face gets much heavier in the base and narrower at the temple. So the triangle actually inverts or turns over. This is a photo from 10 years ago. This is my daughter. She's 21 in this photo. My mother is 71. Hopefully they're not on this call, because they've seen the photo, but they would be horrified, I'm sure. Anyway, you can just see that process happening. My daughter, 21, does life get better? I think not. It's, everything's high and tight, and, it's great. And then, 71, and my mom hasn't had any work done. You can see she's got lax, tissue in her neck, platysmal banding. She's got wrinkles in her forehead. She's heavier in the base. I mean, she has taken really good care of her skin, but I mean, that's just aging when you don't, do anything as an intervention. I know we all have seen this slide a gazillion times. I think maybe Medicis or Valiant had it, and then Galderma. I think Galderma still actually, I think this is still theirs. But a lot of patients will come in and talk about fat pad loss in their face, and especially like your weight loss patients, this is true. They are losing fat, but the fat pads are descending or herniating. But I think the biggest player in weight loss and in facial aging is bone loss, which happens naturally anyway as we get older. A lot of people say that rapid weight loss causes you to lose bone faster too. But I asked the patient to look at that skull on the left versus the one on the right. Look at the difference in the orbital rim. You can see that the older skull, that orbital rim is larger, so your eye isn't getting the support it once had. The hole that holds your nasal cartilage is larger, so your nose starts to change. The bone that your teeth insert into is shorter. your mandible is, much thinner if you look at the picture on the left versus the picture on the right. I love this slide because, picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And when I look at this, the two that look the most similar are the newborn and the elderly. And so I always say, well, we come into this world naked, hairless, and toothless, and if we're lucky enough to live long enough, we leave that way as well. But I think this really emphasizes that point, and patients look at this and they're like, oh yeah. It's funny because universally people will accept that they get, that they're shrinking as they get older, right? So you're losing bone in your spine, but that's happening in every bone in our body, and I don't think people really think about that. So one of the things I always say to patients is you've got to think, your skull, that's a big bone. And so you got to think about your skull shrinking, but your skin staying the same size. It's not as well supported. So you have less bone, which means your muscles are going to shorten because muscles have to insert into bone. The only thing that the skin can do is fold. And that's when you start to see deeper folds in the face submentally and the nasolabial folds. I threw this picture of Jane Seymour because, wow, well done. She looks amazing. I can't speak to what she has done, but I want to be her. Let's see. Jane Fonda, I love because she openly talks about the work that she's had done. The picture on the left, she's 30. In the middle, she's 70. On the far right, she's 87. You don't need the picture on the left to know that the picture on the far right is Jane Fonda. And that's not just, good work. That's great work. And she openly talks about having had a facelift in her 40s. She had another one in her 70s. She also uses neurotoxins and dermal fillers. And she doesn't make women feel bad for wanting to do stuff to their face, and feel good about themselves. So I like that. Dermal filler placed inappropriately can actually make a patient look older. And, this is an example of that where poor Lindsay, this was a rough spot for her, I think, in her life. But, certainly her cheeks are overfilled. It's actually aging her, which is not typically what we're going for. She looks amazing now. I think we've all seen her glow up. But again, and she credits her Dubai dermatologist with this transformation, but I'm going to suggest that she might have a plastic surgeon there as well. That's all I'm saying about that. But she looks amazing. When I talk to patients about Bellafill, and it'll be interesting to see what Tiger does because Suniva never directly marketed to the consumer. And I'm amazed how many patients sit down in my chair and they have no idea what it is. I mean, they've never heard of it. And so you need to give them a reference point because most patients have really only had access to hyaluronic acid. I mean, and what I say is almost everything in the US is a hyaluronic acid. What makes one different than another is who manufactures it and the particle size. So I kind of think of particle size as small, medium, and large. That's going to dictate where you go in the face with it. And I compare it to you can have, let's talk about ice. You can have crushed ice, you can have cubes of ice, and then you can have those mega cubes of ice like you would have in a scotch if you were drinking it, over ice. And then there's oranges. Oranges are going to be your collagen stimulators, and that's going to include Bellafill, Sculptra, and Radiesse. They're the only 3 that are available in the United States.
Wendi, quick question that comes in from the chat room. Why Bellafill over the other biostimulatories?
I'm taking this is a personal question. I like Bellafill because they immediately look better out of my chair because it's the bovine collagen gives them an immediate fluff up. You know where they're going to land in a few months. There is almost no perceivable drop like you get with Sculptra. And again, I do inject all of them. I have them all. And I think, let me just say, I don't bash any products. I think there's a place for everything on the US market. And I think that, the great thing about a lot of these products is they play well with each other in the sandbox. So I'll say that. But I personally, it's weird that I do this as a career because I hate getting stuck. I don't like it. I don't want to be in that chair. And I just love the longevity of it. So, but I feel like when you look at side-by-side pictures, you do get improvement in the skin with Sculptra. I will say that, but I think you get better improvement with Bellafill. And again, that's just an opinion. So yeah. Anything else? I'm on a roll. So, um, well, yeah, I don't want to get into that. When I talk to patients about Bellafill, this is a hard concept for them because Bellafill's sold by the kit, or it should be. If they need a reference point for how much Bellafill is the same, like I'll say 1 syringe of Juvederm or Restylane is the equivalent of 1 kit of Bellafill. And what I mean by that is there is about 1/5 of a teaspoon of product in any syringe of HA. There is about 1/5 of a teaspoon of the part that makes Bellafill long-lasting in a kit. So what you're seeing in the syringe is not what you're getting. And this is really how you have to think about it as the injector, because if I can do it with 1 syringe of HA, I can do it with 1 kit of Bellafill. When I'm out there training out in the world, one of the things that I'll have, like if I'm going back to a practice that maybe hasn't been successful with Bellafill, I'll ask them how much they're injecting, and they're treating it the way that they do other fillers, where they're kind of piecemealing, grabbing maybe 1 or 2 syringes. And when you buy it by the syringe, it's actually more expensive for the patient. And we do that at our place because we want the patient to buy the full kit. Now, if the patient's gotten multiple kits and they're just being tweaked, yeah, I'm not gonna charge them more for that syringe. But we do this to encourage the patient to buy what is appropriate. And if you don't treat the patient with the amount of product that they need, it's so underwhelming for them. And they come back, in a few months and you've put 2 syringes. Well, I mean, it's like spitting in the ocean. If you've got a 50-year-old in front of you that you put 2 syringes in, like I promise it will be so underwhelming. And they're not happy with you, because at my clinic, that would be $2,000. If I spend $2,000, I at least want to look, something needs to be different or changed. And it's not great. So really educating patients on the front end so that they know what the expectation is. They know kind of what it's going to, what it's going to take to get them to full restoration, if that's even what they want. I mean, some people can get 1 or 2 kits and be happy, and then I don't see them for a few years. One of the things that I use in my clinic is I use pictures of before and after. And I'm going to go through some of those with you so you can see, what does 1 kit look like in the face, 2 kits, 3 kits, 4 kits, 5 kits. And so that really helps the patient to visualize, because what I'm asking them to conceptualize, like most patients don't have a reference point unless they work in this field, and a lot of them don't. They have no reference point for it. So I try to help use concrete terms to help them understand an abstract concept, but that does make Bellafill different, and again, I go back to apples and oranges, because I think we like to take information and put it with something that we already understand. And in this lane, that's going to be hyaluronic acid, but that's not right. They shouldn't do that. So that's kind of why I go through all this. Then the question I get a lot is this going to look natural? It's going to look more natural than any hyaluronic acid because it's not pulling water. So you're never going to get that kind of waxing and waning of the face that happens with HAs. And that's not to say, again, HAs are great around the mouth. Like there's a lot of places HAs are great. But when you're talking about the way the face looks, if you are putting it in the appropriate place, it's going to look better than anything else that you use. Again, it's all I have in my face and I love it. Again, I'm a cheerleader for it. And over the years, I've worked for the company that makes it. I've worked for other companies that make other products, but I can really say hands down that for me, not having to be in the chair every year or every other year is definitely a plus. So this is a 55-year-old patient. You're going to have to excuse me. Some of these photos are a little dated, and when you're going, practice to practice, sometimes you don't have the same camera. Over the years, the camera technology, of course, has changed. And I have patients, some of these patients are from 10 years ago. So this is what 1 kit looks like. This 55-year-old woman, she didn't have anything in her face. and she was overly, just her issue was nasolabial folds. That's all she talked about. I want these folds here. I want them gone. The entire kit was placed in the mid face. The folds look better, but I haven't even put anything down there yet. But she looks, you know, better rested, but it's not a huge change. And so that's 5 syringes. And that's why you want to do at least 5. This is another patient. This is 1 kit of Bellafill. She is, let's see, she was 48 and she's now 53 in the after picture. And not everybody needs to have like full restoration. You know, again, you've got to meet your patients where they're at. But if I can get a kit of Bellafill in somebody, I'm probably going to have them as a patient for a very, very long time. This is 2 kits of Bellafill and Botox, and this patient also had quite some weight loss. I think she's at least 20 or 30 pounds down. So, but the quality of her skin, again, that's what I'm saying. It looks amazing. And it looks amazing because you've made the dermis thicker. If the dermis has more collagen and elastin, the skin is going to act and look younger like it did, you know, I can't say like 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, it just, and you start to get this glow, which we call the Bella glow. And that comes from, you know, once you have all this new collagen, you need to be able to feed it with blood vessels. So your body does grow blood vessels to be able to feed this new tissue. And that's why you start to get that, we call it the Bella glow. But it's, you know, again, it's just science. It's a 44-year-old. This is 2 kits. And again, placed strategically in the mid face and along the jaw. This is this gentleman, he was 50 when he came in and he was wearing fake glasses because he had what he referred to as festoons under eye bags. And so you can see in the side profile, you can actually see the significance of that. And then he also had some acne scarring that I corrected. But the picture, the second one in, is 5 years out, and that's what he looks like at 55. So, you know, it's pretty, and again, different lighting, but you can see that his skin is much better. He's come out from the mustache. I mean, he just feels good about himself, and that's great. This is actually, I did this just maybe the beginning of this year, 3 kits, and this is a work in progress. I'm still working with this patient, but you know, in the beginning, well, the first thing I said is, I don't know who's toxing your forehead. You have to stop she looks like she hasn't slept in, you know, weeks, and she's just so heavy. She's very smooth, but again, so she and I have to give her kudos because she did everything I asked her to do. And so we stopped the toxin in the frontalis, 3 kits in the mid face. I haven't even gotten down to her lower face yet. So we're still working on it, but she looks amazing. She looks great. This patient is one of my favorites. If you look on the far left, she is 52 years old there, and she's postmenopausal. And one of the first things I said is, "Oh, you need an upper blepharoplasty." And she said, I don't want to get surgery. And I said, okay. And so if you look at the second picture in, that's her at age 57. And again, it's Botox, Bellafill, and threads, and I think she looks amazing. And then if you look at the far right picture, you can see, you know, the picture on the far right, that was taken recently. I think she's about to be 62. So I mean, this is like a 10-year window, which it's kind of cool to think that you could look better, and especially I'm talking postmenopausally better in 10 years than you look today. And that is, you know, you never want to promise something you can't deliver, but consistently with Bellafill, I can. I know I can. It's given me longevity and retention of patients that I don't understand, but I'm happy that I have it. And it's also afforded me opportunities that I will honestly say no other filler has. I mean, I had never, and again, this is just me, but I had never been on a private plane in my entire life. And I had a client put me on a private plane, fly me to the other side of the country. I mean, and you know, we all know people live like this, but most of us don't know people that live like this. And so, you know, it's just those kind of crazy things. I don't understand it, but I'm happy that I get to experience it. And really, it's Bellafill that's done that for me. Nobody is putting me on a private plane for me to fly across the country and put Juvederm in their lips. I mean, let's be honest. you know, a lot of people that do that. And, you know, it's just, it's the filler, and it's, even though it's just science and their skin is so much better, they always give that credit to you. And I always say the same thing. I'm like, it's a superior product. It's the Rolls Royce of fillers. That's what's making your skin glow like that. Nope, Wendy, you did it. And, you know, and I appreciate that, but it is really literally just science. This patient is 54 on the left, and she was treated with 3 kits of Bellafill and and toxin, and she's a year out in the picture on the right. And finally, this patient, I found out that she is still living. I'm very, very happy. She's 80 years old in this picture, and this is 5 kits of Bellafill, threads, and toxin, and she looks amazing. Again, you're not looking at her and you're saying, oh, is she 40? No, but she just looks really fantastic for her age. And you know, that's a great product. So again, I can't say enough positive things about it. And it is a great collaboration with your weight loss patients. And then just on a final note, I'm wrapping up. I want to say thank you for taking the time to be on this call tonight. But one of my passion projects that I've been doing with a good friend of mine who is as big of a research geek as I am, we both over the years have passed evidence-based research back and forth. We love it. And it's hard when you're in clinical and you're slammed to be able to go out and find the latest and greatest research in the aesthetic field that's not behind a paywall. And so what the two of us have done is we've gotten together and put all of our favorite articles on something called Injectopedia. It is a free resource. It is going to remain free. It's for aesthetic injectors. It will not be a subscription. I hate that. I just wanted to provide something to my fellow injectors that would be helpful, but it would also help them during their workday. They're going to be able to find the information that they need. And we've gotten really great feedback on it. And my good friend took the time to go through and create photos for every article so you can breeze through and look at it and know exactly what the article is. You don't have to open it up. You know, you can find what you're looking for. There's a lot of things that happen if you've been doing this long enough that are challenging to fix at times. So go to the research, go to the evidence-based data and pull it and use it in your daily practice. And so hopefully this will help some of you. And like I said, you should definitely check it out because it's great.
Wendy, couple questions. How would you compare, you did compare Bellafill to Sculptra, but how would you compare it to hyperdiluted Radiesse?
I use a ton of Radiesse in my practice. I love it. I love the longevity of Bellafill over Radiesse, but what I will say is if a patient is unable to buy a kit, and let's be honest, sometimes it's cost prohibitive, and I get that. I mean, I have people that work really, really hard, and I feel so honored they come in, you know, to allow me to treat them. But I'm going to push them towards Radiesse if they're unable to buy a kit, because at the end of the day, we're trying to hit a clinical outcome and improve the patient's face. But in terms of longevity of how long the product stays, and I'm going to go back to how the skin looks, I do think Bellafill does it better. Again, it's just an opinion. But the other thing I want to say that I think a lot of injectors are a little bit confused about, when you're using anything hyper diluted, you're doing that to improve the texture of the skin, not volumize the skin. Does that make sense? Because if you want to lift, you know, and when I say volumize, I mean lift the tissue with filler, you've got to have a higher G prime than what you have with hyperdiluted anything, right? But when I want to fix somebody's crepey skin, which also comes with age and weight loss, I'm going to go to something hyperdiluted.
And Wendy, another question from the chat room. I certainly can't answer this being on the commercial team, but where else would you find a massive use for a collagen stimulator like Bellafill?
I use it everywhere. I use it all over the body. I use it in the knees, the elbows, for my own personal journey. One day I got out of the shower and realized I had crepey armpits. Who knew? I mean, so there you go, armpits. We were just having a discussion about using it for runners, for fat pads in the feet. I mean, again, a dermis is a dermis is a dermis. It behaves the same way. So you can take what's happening on the face and extrapolate it and go, wow, I can use this on the knees. I can use this on the elbows. The hands, it works amazing in the hands. You know, I'll leave it at that. I've used it for people that have, for whatever reason, can't or don't want to get a tummy tuck and they just want improvement. You know, and again, I'm not using just Bellafill. I'm using Bellafill with RF microneedling. You know, I'm coupling modalities together for skin improvement.
Awesome. Any other questions for Wendi? Well, thank you, Wendi, for being a part of this evening and sharing your experience with Bellafill. Jeff, I'm going to toss this to you.
Sure. I want to thank everybody for coming on and thank the generosity of Tiger. One of the other things that we're going to be releasing is our legit script certification program. We are going to be a clearinghouse for them very, very soon. It normally costs about $5,600 for you to get an expedited certificate. This allows you to advertise your GL1P programs and other drug-based programs on TikTok, LinkedIn, the Google ads, the Meta platforms. And right now, Visa and MasterCard are starting to consider some med spas as high risk, and many of the payment processors are suspending accounts or holding funds if the certificate is not in place. Our program, it's normally like $5,700 to get expedited. Expedited definition is once you hand in your things for review, you'll get reviewed within 2 business days, and you generally will get your certificate inside of 2 months. The Med Results Network price of this program is 40% off at $3,300. Thanks to the people at Tiger. If you are participating in today's webinar, you'll be able to get it for $3,000. And if you go and purchase 5 kits of Bellafill, which the Med Results Network price is $1,295 per kit. List price is about $2,500. You'll be able to get your legit script certification for $2,500, again, expedited. So I want to thank the Tiger folks for allowing us to offer this to you. Melanie, I think we have some more questions. You're on mute.
All right, let me take a look here. Wendi, you could probably answer this. The bovine collagen, how long it lasts, and if there's any allergy reactions.
It lasts about anywhere from 1 to 2 months. And we do have a skin test, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Tiger's going to the FDA. Hopefully we will be getting rid of it.
Yes.
And I personally, I have skin tested a few patients in my time, but if I'm going to skin test them, I'm waiting the whole month. I'm not going to skin test them and treat them next week. Like if we're going to do it, we're going to do it by the book. Most of my patients sign a consent. And I think it was actually Dr. Clemens and I were having this discussion. He's a dermatologist. And, you know, when you think about the way that an allergy works, that first exposure, you might not have a reaction, but the second exposure, that's, you know, that's going to be worse. And one of the things he said to me, because we were talking, should you skin test? You know, what do you do personally in your practice? And he said, I'd rather get some of the PMMA in them, even if they have a reaction. We've never had one that we couldn't treat with oral prednisone. And once the bovine collagen's broken down, you know, they're good to go. It's not the PMMA, that's an inert substance. Nobody's reacting to that. And just because somebody can eat meat or beef doesn't mean they're not going to have a reaction when it's injected into their skin. But to put it in perspective for you, I had seen pictures, you know, Suniva about reactions. I'd never seen one in real life until I'd been injecting it for 10 years. And at one point they were tracking me at 150 syringes a week is what I was injecting. So I've injected a lot of Bellafill, and it's really, I mean, it doesn't mean it can happen, but it is pretty rare. But like I said, I did have a patient have a reaction, but I'd been using it for 10 years at that point.
Yeah, and just like to add, in the skin test alone, which again, we are in the midst of a study with the FDA to dispose of the skin test because it's not even regulated in Canada to use. The skin test only involves Bellafill and lidocaine, the two products that the product or a patient could actually and possibly have an allergic reaction to. Again, very treatable. A couple other questions for you, Wendi. Do you ever inject Bellafill into deep fat pads? And then also, do you hyperdilute for areas like the hands?
Yes and yes. You can go anywhere with Bellafill. You can go down to bone. You can be in the deep fat pads. If I'm treating a patient, I'm going to treat them in the dermis first and get their, because I love what it does to the skin. If I'm going to, and again, there are patients that come in that are like, I don't want anything but Bellafill in me, and that's great, but it takes a little bit more to get that kind of projection down deep on the bone. I'm not saying it works, it's great, but I mean, it just takes a little bit more. And so again, we are running businesses, and you do need to be cognizant of the patient's finances and what's going to work for them. So if I can get them out of my office and get them filled to the point where their face looks better, but their skin really looks better in a few months, I mean, game on, it's great. But yeah, there really isn't any place that you can't go.
Thank you.
One more thing I'll say, if I'm in a location where the skin is thinner, I always hyperdilute it. I came up with a saying years ago, when in doubt, thin it out, because it's not going to hurt it. And and again, if you put it in full strength, chances are it will be fine. But if you put it in hyper diluted, like say you have an elderly woman and you're in her temple and her skin's very, very thin and you can, and papery, well, I'm going to hyper dilute it in that type of skin just because I don't want the patient to be I don't want them to be calling the office every other day. But it makes them feel, because they do look better out of the chair, and it cuts down on a lot of those post-treatment calls.
Another question, after treating so many patients on GLP-1s and you're seeing this massive weight loss, do you see an improvement with utilizing Bellafill as a skin texture improvement? Meaning as you just mentioned, their skin is very thin. Do you see a change in using Bellafill for those patients to see projection of their skin in a better way?
Yeah, absolutely. Because think about what's happening. You're putting the PMMA in the dermis, and that causes a low inflammatory response. Your body will make collagen and elastin to surround it, because it's our body's protecting itself, right? Because it's a foreign body. That PMMA is a foreign body in the same way that PLLA is a foreign body, or CAHA and it's all the same process. But yeah, it does. When you get more collagen and elastin in the skin, it looks better on the surface and it behaves younger. And I wish I would have thrown this slide in there. When I was 50, I had Mohs surgery and ended up with like 43 sutures in my face. And the way I healed, I mean, I didn't get closed by a plastic surgeon. I probably would and should have if I had known what I was walking into. But the way I healed, even the doctor was like, this is amazing. At the time I was 50, and he goes, you're healing like somebody that's 15, not 50. And I'm like, well, I'm full of Bellafill. And it was interesting because he didn't even know what Bellafill was. So I educated him.
Another one question, would you hyperdilute above the lip for the skin and smoker lines?
Yeah, absolutely. You just, it's like any other one. You need to be careful when you're around a concentric muscle. You don't want to use it full strength. I would definitely hyperdilute there.
Thanks, Wendy.
Any more questions? Guess not. So
Nope, I think we're good.
I want to close it out. Again, I want to thank you guys. If you have any questions about the tirzepatide that's going into production, it's already in production right now in a manufacturing facility, and we're going to be releasing that the third week of August, most likely. The legit script certification program, if you came here to visit and watch this, you'll get it for $3,000. If you buy the 5 kits of Bellafill, you'll be able to purchase it for $2,500. Thank you, Tiger Aesthetics. If you have any questions on any of that or anything else, catch us at info@medresultsnetwork. Just send us a note. I'll make sure that Wendy gets it if it's a clinical question, or Melanie will get it if it's a business question. And if it's a question that we can answer, we'll try to do that. We're non-clinical, of course. So I want to thank you two for showing up, and I want to thank everybody else. And we look forward to having you on for more.
Thank you. Thanks
Okay.
for
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.